I mentioned at the top of the show, there was this hearing yesterday. It was like by the DOGE subcommittee looking into men who play in women's sports. And look, they've had a lot of these kinds of hearings, but this one stood out because of Brandon Gill. Rising star in the Republican Party. I think he's only 31 years old. He's from Texas. Fun fact, he's married to Dinesh D'Souza's daughter, which is so cool. Dinesh and I go way back. And he should be the only one doing questioning. I mean, it's really at that level. He's so effective. So he gets this guy who is such a jerk of USA Fencing, Damien Lefeldt, Lehfeldt, in front of him yesterday, who was one of the witnesses called to testify. And we've been covering the story of this young woman who she walked out. She refused to fence a man in her championship. She had to sacrifice the potential of the medal. No one cared. Her name was, I think it was Stephanie Turner. Yeah, where she got up and she was like, I'm not doing this. It was just this past March. This guy, zero empathy for the Stephanie Turners of the world. In fact, he's the reason that she and others like her are having to go through this and sacrifice their medals. He is all in on letting men play in women's sports and very against even parents who raise an objection based on the safety of their daughters. Well, Brandon Gill wasn't having it. Okay, let's start with, SOT 5.
You think that parents who don't want their daughters competing against men in women's sports are whiny?
No, sir.
You don't? Why did you write that on social media? I've got a picture here where you posted that. You were allegedly responding to a parent who didn't want their daughter being beaten up by men in sports competitions. You said, I'm not going to pull her from the sport and write a whiny email announcing my departure.
Sir, Mr. Congressman Jack had asked me about that and want to be crystal clear that was an inappropriate message.
Do you think that they're cowardly?
Sir, no, I don't. I don't at all. And in fact...
Why did you write that on social media?
I regret it, sir. I deleted it shortly after posting, and I certainly don't feel that way anymore. And given a lot of the messages that we receive, and even conversations that I've had,
do you think that
Ms.
parents
Turner,
who don't want their daughters competing against men in sports should be compared to the Ku Klux Klan?
No, absolutely not. And
why did you
I
do
said
that?
that in the message, sir.
Why did you do that?
Inappropriate.
That was inappropriate?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you're right. That isn't inappropriate. I'd like to read what you wrote and what you posted on social media.
Sure.
Responding allegedly to a lady who had these concerns. The only wizard that's going to dig you out of the myopic hole you've put yourself and your family in is one of the, quote, grand wizard variety.
Inappropriate, sir.
Yikes.
And I acknowledge that I said it, and I will commit to never making a message like that again.
That was in response to a parent, according to you on social media, who had a problem with this. Was this a real email that you were responding to?
It was a real email, sir. I did not respond to it and hit send.
This was a real email. Did an actual parent write this, or did you write this email?
It was written by an actual person claiming to be a parent. They were not a member of our
Were you that actual person?
No, sir.
You were not that actual person, but you staged this whole interaction.
The response, sir, was not real, and I regret that.
Okay.
Wow. Oh, my Lord.
So here's the thing. First off, Brandon Gill is brilliant. Brilliant. He's the class president for the freshman class. But he's not just brilliant and courageous to be willing to take up these fights. He's methodical.
Yeah,
like he always walks these people straight into a ditch before he body slams them.
Well, I mean,
It's
I got to say, the Lord has really blessed us in that our enemies are very stupid.
Yes.
You know, like, how is it that you're going to answer that question and be like, no, I don't believe that? When you got to know, you're going before the House of Representatives, the United States Congress. Like, they got the details. Like, they got everything
Especially
you've ever
him.
said. Yeah. But it speaks to how insane these people are, right? That they actually are that egotistical that they can actually think they could lie before the United States House of Representatives and they're not going to get called on their shit. Like, that is their whole ideology is just like, these people are just malignant narcissists.
Yep.
Well, so Duncan, you heard the accusation there. He denied it. But what we're being told is that this guy, again, he's denying it, sort of, but he wrote the plaintiff email of, I'm pulling my daughter and boys shouldn't compete against girls. And you're putting the needs of 1% above the needs of 50%. It speaks volumes. You're a man defending men's rights. Signed, Dorothy. That he wrote that.
Yeah, it's the email version of the LeBron flop. You know, it's like,
oh wait, here it is in SOT 9. Okay, this just so that he could write back his like, screw you, Dorothy. The only wizard you're going to be dealing with is the KKK wizard response, just to make himself look like a tough guy. Here he is confirming that this whole thing was fake. SOT 9.
Mr. Lefelt, and I mean this with respect, in your capacity as a representative of USA Fencing, have you ever impersonated a woman?
No, I have not, sir, not to my knowledge.
I ask because I understand you have a history of creating fictitious female personas. In one instance, you impersonated a woman named Dorothy and wrote an email to yourself, which you then published on social media for all your followers to see along with your response. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I do, sir. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address that. It was a poor attempt at humor. It was unbecoming of me as a leader of this organization to post that as I did. And quite frankly, moving forward, that's not something that's going to happen again. It's unacceptable. And it's not something that should happen with any human-to-human interaction, period.
I mean, this guy has spent the last who knows how many years waging a different kind of sword fight, and he just got bodied.
like, let's step back for a second, and knowing that all this is going to come out as you're sitting there at the desk. Like, you're that committed to letting men play in women's sports. Yeah, like you could just send out a press release and be like, no, we're good. Women just in women's sports. And like sweep it under the rug. But to sit there and put yourself through this entire process is an insane proposition.
One of my favorite little parts of those deals is right about when you're going to get massacred in these hearings, when you're like, well, thank you. Yeah. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss the most humiliating things that I've done.
I'd love to get kicked in the groin on national television.
And the fact that it's part of a congressional record forever is great.
Let's watch more. SOT 6.
Are you okay with cis females being at a disadvantage?
If their competitor, assuming that you're talking about,
it's a yes or no question,
female, that they've met the requirements set forth in the policy.
Why did you post on social media for the world to see? You were asked in an anonymous question, which you posted online. Are you okay with cis females being at a disadvantage? You said yeah.
Yeah, I believe it was Congressman Cloud that had asked me about that, sir, and I'm happy to address it again. That was a one-word answer to a more nuanced topic, and I feel like if I could take it back and expound a little bit more than what I had there.
Reclaiming my time.
Reclaiming my time. Yeah, here it is. He's got it right here. He posted, send me anonymous messages. And the question is, are you okay with cis females being at a disadvantage? And again, I mean, he probably posted that question to himself again. And he responds, yeah, in big letters, yeah. He's fine. The guy doesn't give a shit. And by the way, he wasn't disavowing that position yesterday. He was wiggling on his most smarmy like articulations of it. But he was not disavowing his position that men should be playing against women. I'll give you one more. SOT 7.
I'm just asking you yes or no. Do you think men should be allowed in women's locker rooms?
I don't have a personal opinion on
You don't have you have a personal opinion on a lot of things, but not on that?
Sure. I mean, a locker room is not really an area where people interact.
So the answer is yes.
I don't
Do you
really
think that men should be allowed to share showers with women in athletic facilities?
I think that showering is a private activity and that it should be private.
And it should be private. There's oftentimes communal showers. Are you okay with men showering with women?
I don't have an opinion on that in the context of USA.
You don't? Interesting. That's an astounding thing to not have an opinion on. I think most normal people have an opinion on that.
He's so good.
He's
so good.
I love that he doesn't let him off the hook, right?
Yes, he goes right to
right.
Like
right.
even your lie to me. We all know he has an opinion and that he's totally fine with it. But Gill accepts his lie and then exposes how absurd the lie position is.
Exactly. He lets him dig his own grave. That's what I love about the way he does this entire interrogation.
Totally.
He's not going to let him get an escape hatch and then be like, all right, well, we're going to move on to something else. It's like, no, it's actually super weird. Most normal people have an opinion about communal showers between men and women, you know?
And here's one more. This will not surprise any of you. Watch this last one and then I'll give it to you, Smug. SOT 8. Yeah.
You think inclusivity presumably is a big part of the fencing community. Is that right?
I would say so, sir. We're a very welcoming community, and I'm proud of that.
Are you welcoming to Trump supporters?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Then why did you, with your Facebook page,
There it is.
from the fencing coach,
dozen,
right?
man.
Imagine being one of 71 million people dumb enough to vote re-election for a treasonous clown who's permanently banned from Twitter for inciting an insurrection. You mad MAGA bros.
I acknowledge that I stated that in my personal capacity, sir. However, as chair, I have
That
to
was from
acknowledge
the
sir,
fencing coach.
I have to acknowledge that 77 million people voted for him in re-election.
That wasn't your personal capacity. That was from your capacity as, quote, the fencing coach online.
Yes,
Like,
that is my blog, sir. That's my publication, and I acknowledge writing that.
Okay. Is it any wonder that this poor girl, Stephanie Turner, was faced with this situation? Let's run the video of her at this USA Fencing event, March of 2025. She handled it very gracefully. She saw that it was a male. Can we run the video? She saw that it was male, and she got up and said, no. She said, I mean, no disrespect, but you are a male, and I'm not going to compete against you. Here she was giving it all up. Look at this. This woman trained countless hours over the course of her life, years and years of practice and dedication and other opportunities missed. And it all came down to this. And she chose not to fence because her opponent was a male. And this guy, Damien Lefeldt, who is the head of USA Fencing, is to blame, as are all the board members of USA Fencing who are allowing this. All we need is 2/3 of them to fire this guy, and we might be able to start anew. But from what I'm gleaning, they all need to be fired too. Anybody that would leave this absolute moron in charge of this organization, as public as he's been all over social media with these positions, they're complicit. They share the ideology. That seems very clear. And it took this young this young woman an act of courage, Stephanie Turner, to really turn our attention to what was happening in this, relatively obscure sport. It's very important to those who do it, but it's not like NFL football. We don't focus on fencing that much, but it's just as wrong.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is that I remember seeing that video and I was so enraged because you saw the guy who was trying to compete against her walk over and be like, why aren't you competing? This is unfair to me, because like there was this horrific period of time that we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel of where there was this social pressure of you have to bow down to this insanity. Don't trust your lying eyes. It's totally normal that a guy wants to compete with women. And if you don't agree with that, you're a bigot. And then the thing that was at the center of all of this, and that Brandon Gill did a great job of exposing and making so clear with that idiot who was cross-examining, is it was all about this whole kind of like virtue signaling of putting these posts out there. Even if you're creating the email to yourself to virtue, I'm a good person. Look at me. I'm with this new movement. I support the thing, of like, look how good I am. Of making himself look like a clown.
But do you, like, I'm not even sure it's an ideology anymore. Like, if you look at some of those posts and, like the one that Brandon Gill was pointing out about, are you okay with cis women being at a disadvantage?
Like
and he says,
illness.
yeah.
It's just misogyny.
I think they actually just hate, and I'm curious, Megyn, your perspective on this. Like, I'm not even sure it's an ideology anymore. I think they actually just hate women.
They're like the OG misogynists.
I think they actually are just misogynists.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, because they're really they don't care about women's rights at all. They want men to be in a position to hurt them. Like, who would back that other than someone who has deep loathing of women?
Yeah.
And they're not alone. This was, oh my God, this is infuriating. The Women's Law Center, which do not be fooled by the name. They decide, this woman, Fatima Goss Graves, who was there, she is the president of the National Women's Law Center Action Fund and a co-founder of Time's Up. Red flag.
There we go.
Right?
There we go. Yeah.
So her foundation bio says she's an attorney who has spent her career fighting to advance the opportunities for women and girls. She issued a blistering statement after Trump's executive order keeping men out of women's sports, which was a thing of beauty. And she goes on as follows. This executive order is another attempt to bully trans people, including children, and misuse the government to enforce sexist gender roles. Sexist gender roles? What are you saying?
Yeah.
Biological
nonsensical
roles. That's what we're talking about. President Trump's actions are cruel, blatant attempts to eviscerate safe, affirming, and equitable schools, a right that every student deserves, including transgender youth. How is this pro-woman? You are the CEO of the National Women's Law Center, and all she gives a damn about is the men pretending to be us.
It's incredible. I mean, the mental gymnastics, it almost is a mental illness at this point. If you come to this, it's either that or like the fencing guy heard a lot about sword fighting and had a very different connotation to what it was that he was trying to manage.
I don't think he'd be good at that either.
Megyn. Oh, I love you.
Getting that from MK? Oh my gosh. That just cuts to the core. That just cuts
I
to the
hope
core.
he hears it.
Yeah, I hope he does too. But you're right. I mean, this is modern day misogyny. It just is what it is. You don't go back to like the progressive left sort of support of women, or all the work and the blood, sweat, and tears went into Title IX and all the people associated with that. Then now take a leftist position that like, no, it's totally cool if dudes can just completely crush you in all these various athletic. It's nuts. It's a crazy.
And then they use
thing.
these warm words of like it's safe,
right,
and it's affirming,
right,
and it's equitable.
Yeah. Safe,
so they have coded all of
affirming
this.
is such an interesting word.
Yeah, it's so dangerous.
Not safe for the
People are
girls.
gonna die if you don't do what we say.
Yeah, safe for who?
Wait.
Not that girl who got the volleyball
Listen to
slammed
this.
into her face.
So that moron who I just read from, she gave testimony at this event yesterday, and somebody asked her about Peyton McNabb, who was also there, the girl who, when she was 17, suffered brain damage after the ball was spiked so hard. Right? Yeah, exactly, State of the Union. So this woman who I just read from, Women's Law Center, was asked about Peyton McNabb, and watch this.
Was Peyton McNabb safe on September 1st of 2022?
It sounds like she definitely wasn't. And
Thank
what happened
you.
to her was tragic. I would argue, though, that the answer is to ensure that people can't spike volleyballs into people's heads. That seems unsafe.
Oh my God. She has no idea what the sport is.
What it does.
Right.
Like, what is she talking about? I would argue
we should
that
also
there
get
should
rid
be
of
no ball at
baskets
all.
in basketball.
Yep.
I mean, that's literally, this woman is an idiot. An idiot. Is it any wonder, like, Time's Up rejected the claims of Tara Reid against Joe Biden, right? Like, you've got people like that running these organizations. It's no wonder they're just absolutely stupid partisan hacks. This July, there is a global summit of BRICS nations in Rio de Janeiro. The bloc of emerging superpowers, including China, Russia, India, and Iran, are meeting with the goal of displacing the U.S. dollar as the global currency. They're calling this the Rio Reset as BRICS nations push forward with their plans. Some worry global demand for U.S. dollars will decrease, bringing down the value of the dollars in your savings. While this transition won't happen overnight, the Rio Reset could mark a pivotal moment. So learn if diversifying your savings into gold is right for you. Birch Gold Group can help you move your hard-earned savings into a tax-sheltered IRA in precious metals. Claim your free info kit on gold by texting MK to the number 989898. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, let Birch Gold arm you with a free, no-obligation info kit on owning gold before July and the Rio Reset. Text MK to 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.